AM radio show for quite a bit, some time. We actually started as a show called Swap Talk, where you'd call in with your lawnmower, another guy would have a leaf blower, and then another guy would call in and trade you for, a wagon or something else. And so after about the first 3 hours, we ran out of stuff to talk about. And so we asked if anybody had something to call in and talk about. And sure enough, we got Bigfoot calls and UFO calls and all kinds of fun stuff to chat about. But it was right up our alley because we've been doing this research for a long time. I was born in '69, so I'll tell you how old I am. My first UFO experience was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I'm sure you guys all saw that back in '77. And then, of course, followed by Star Wars and all those great things. So I moved to the Pacific Northwest in about 1990, and it was right before the start of the Gulf War. Hung out with a lot of friends camping and hunting and doing a lot of research. Paul wasn't able to make it tonight. He actually just got back from the Big Sky Bigfoot conference and was a little bit tired, but we'd been up there for quite some time doing a lot of hunting and fishing and all those types of things. So we all had our own share of experiences in the woods. And then, like I said, in about 1982, I've been up there visiting family, and the Quinault Indian Reservation had taken me out, where they'd done a logging strip for about 9 miles. And within that week, there was little flowers put in every logging stump for miles. And so really opened my eyes and the hair on my arms about what's going on out there in the woods. So anyways, that's how the show got started. We moved to the internet here in April. So I've got a lot of little old ladies that are really mad at me because they lost their AM show. But we're on the internet now, so they have to get iPhones or computers, but that's where we're at. So SasquatchSyndicate.com is our website. We're known for our podcast. We also have a book club for readers out there. We announced the book about 90 days before we have the author come on the show. That gives you time to read the book, immerse yourself in the topic, and submit questions. They come on the podcast the first of the month, so they'll talk about different things that they've seen or their research throughout their novel writing. We're also known for our Faces collection. So we have graphic artists, and then of course, as we get encounters and depictions, we put their faces up on the internet. So we're known for the largest Faces collection of Sasquatch and Bigfoot on the internet. So if you want to check us out. So just a brief history on Sasquatch. Is everybody in here purported Bigfoot experts, or is there some novices in here that don't know anything about Bigfoot? Is there a few? Okay, a couple of good hands in the audience. So a brief history. Back in the 1800s, and there was no media or, of course, social phenomenon back in the 1800s, but there was accounts long before the Associated Press. Back in the 1800s, there was a lot of hunting, newspaper articles. There's a couple here from British Columbia where hunters had purportedly shot and killed some type of creature out in the woods. So this is back in the 1800s. Stories kind of kept evolving through 1924. There was a couple of different famous printed stories. But the Native Americans in North America, and there's over 200 tribes, and they're all listed up here, they all had a name for this creature. That's pretty interesting because they didn't travel for trade. Some of them did, but a lot of them didn't. The other piece is that Sasquatch and Bigfoot, although it had a name, it all had the same attributes. So even though they had given it a different name, the creature in the woods, the wild man, the hairy man, there was no Bigfoot or, there was a Sasquatch name up in British Columbia, but all the tribes had a different name for this creature. So that was also very, very interesting. So all these tribes all the way into Oklahoma, down in Texas, all of these had names for this creature. A lot of them also wouldn't let their kids leave the edge of the forest or the edge of the flame near the fire because they were afraid of what would happen at night with the boogeyman might get them. And so we'll talk about the boogeyman here in a little bit. But Sasquatch, there was reported sightings in tribes, of course, for many, many years. Abduction of women, abduction of children. And so this all happened at night. There's also stories that go back as far as Lewis and Clark. There's journals of Lewis and Clark on separate range. Okay, good, thank you. Sorry. But there are Lewis and Clark writings just about as they traveled through the passes that they had encounters with hairy men. And they also had the tribes telling them how they exchanged goods with hairy men with large feet. That's very, very interesting. These were also written in different journals of the Lewis and Clark. A lot of people don't know that, but it's very interesting that the tribes, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have social media. They had smoke signals, I suppose. But they weren't talking about Sasquatch and Bigfoot to each other, but it was interesting that they all had different theories about it. In the First Nation tribes up in Canada, and I live pretty close to there now, and we've done a lot of research in the Hope, Chilliwack areas up in Fraser Valley. All the tribes up there call it hairy man. And it's always been hairy man in Canada. It's been there for some time as a local legend. And we'll talk a little bit more about hairy man as well. So in the 1950s, and a little bit before that, we had the Associated Press. So for those that go back to the days of reading the newspaper, I'm sure there's a few here in the room. Everybody else gets it, I guess, on the internet or CNN posts now, but I still read, by the way, that's why I have a book club. I also am out in the woods researching Bigfoot, so I'm not in front of a computer very much. But in the 50s, the very first breakout and how Bigfoot really got its name in North America was there was a gentleman named Jerry Crew. He worked up here in Humboldt County, which is about 380 miles northwest of here, up near the Willow Creek, Humboldt area, and he was on a logging committee. And what happened is about 29 miles up a hill, they would bring their logging equipment in. They bulldoze, they bring brush hogs in, they bring all their gear up there. And do we have any loggers in the room tonight, or anybody that's ever worked in the logging industry? So the equipment, as you can imagine, isn't small, light-duty equipment. This is heavy machinery. The tires of most bulldozers range anywhere from 300 to 500 pounds. And because that they did logging, they'd leave their gear and they'd come up every night up to the equipment. And that equipment, of course, they bring up spares. They didn't have to carry it up every day, so they just bring it up when they brought everything up. When they'd come up in the morning, sometimes the tires that were stacked up, these 500-pound tires, were thrown down the hill. And so if you can pick up a lot of this information on our website. Of course, there's a lot out on the internet. But Jerry Crew had cast a bunch of footprints. And so that made its way to the Associated Press and across the U.S., and the term Bigfoot was born. So the story goes that it kind of laid low for some time, and of course the tribe still had a lot of legends about Bigfoot and about Sasquatch. But in 1967, there was a film also shot here in Willow Creek, California, up near the Bluff Creek watershed, by Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. Everybody familiar with that story? I see a few hands. I'm sure you guys have seen the video 100 different times. It's been digitally enhanced. It's been broken down every wave from Sunday by every purported researcher in the world, and they can't debunk it. As you guys probably are also aware, there's a gentleman named Bob Hieronymus that came out and said he was the one wearing the suit. But of course, they've done dimension tests, and Bob doesn't fit the bill on the creature's mechanics. So very, very interesting. But this was pretty interesting. The cool thing is that I've met Bob Gimlin a few times. So I had a lot of time to spend with Bob Gimlin. And he still stands by it to this day. Of course, Roger Patterson died. Took the secrets to his grave, but Bob still stands by the story. I was a little bit younger in that picture over there. But anyways, Bob's a really good guy. If you ever meet him, if you get out to a Bigfoot conference, be sure to say hello, but he's still hanging in there, and of course, has a great story about this. So Bob was contracted by Roger Patterson to help him bring up supplies and gear. Bob was an outdoorsman. He was a horseman. Spent a lot of time in the wilderness and in the backcountry, so Roger had asked him to come up. And they spent about 3 weeks looking for the creature before they found this frame right here, 352. So that's pretty close to here, by the way. So if after the conference you got time and you want to go up to Willow Creek, it's a fantastic Bigfoot area. Has anybody been to Willow Creek? Okay, and we've probably got a couple people in here, I think, from Humboldt County. I saw it earlier, so. But it is a fantastic time. They also have a Bigfoot Days event that happens once a year as well, so pretty good times. So of course, coming out of that sighting, there was a lot of researchers that got involved in what this phenomenon was, and it was more than just a myth. It was what they call cryptozoology. Does anybody know what cryptozoology is? The study of creatures undiscovered yet. Of course, cryptozoology has uncovered a lot of different new species of ape, new species of chimpanzees. Recently, they discovered the bonobo. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. But a lot of different creatures out there. This planet was inhabited for about 6,000 years by a lot of ape species. So there's a lot of different apes across the world that build up these different camps. So our show, of course, focuses, we're pretty wide open. And so until somebody tells me they have a Bigfoot in their garage, I can study. I'm going to be pretty open on my show. So Sasquatch Syndicate, we explore all the camps and all the theories because there's a lot going on within the Sasquatch community, and I don't shut any doors. We're a syndicate, so we're a community of purported experts and researchers and authors that are getting out the word, and the more promotion and research of Sasquatch we get out, the more researchers that will get involved, and hopefully we'll bring this topic to a head. So let's talk about the flesh and blood camp. So we're at Alien Con tonight, so of course we're going to talk about Alien Con, but there's rigidly opposed camps within the Bigfoot community. It's pretty interesting. We also get that in the UFO. If anybody else has anybody been to a UFO conference besides this one? A few. What is it with UFO researchers and how they feel about their subjects too? So there's rigidly opposed camps. I mean, it's a battleground out there on the different camps about what Sasquatch is, what Bigfoot is, and we also see that in the UFO community as well. But we're going to talk a little bit about how these camps come together. But the initial theory was that Bigfoot was based on Gigantopithecus blackie. Has anybody ever heard that? Okay, so Gigantopithecus blackie was a prehistoric ape. Its teeth and its fragments were found in China in an apothecary. And so they learned about this creature, and they discovered that this creature was 8 to 10 foot tall, 800 to 1,100 pounds, and it was in Northeast Asia. If you know anything about the Bering Sea, at certain times throughout history, there was a land bridge that connected the Russian continent and North America. So the theory behind Gigantopithecus blackie was that as the sea became ice and creatures moved away from their natural habitat and followed natural resources, that this creature, Gigantopithecus blackie, crossed into British Columbia and then into North America and went extinct in Asia. So from about 1960 to today, there's a huge camp out there that talks about Gigantopithecus and the fact that Sasquatch or Bigfoot is flesh and blood and it's an ape. And it's roaming the wilderness and we haven't found it yet. The thing you should know about the ape camp is that never in North American history has there ever been a primate bone or any type of primate hair or any DNA discovered in North America. So, as you can imagine, that those researchers, after many, many years, have moved into what they call relic hominid. So, relic hominid inquiry, and if, does everybody know Dr. Jeff Meldrum? Yeah, a few people see him on TV. So, Dr. Meldrum had started a new theory called the relic hominid inquiry. He actually teaches at Idaho State University to talk about Sasquatch as a spinoff between a human and, of course, an ape. And so there's a theory behind the relic hominid camp that it could be a type of Neanderthal creature that spun off of like the orangutan line or something else, another theory of humans. And then, of course, there's the human hybrid theory that this thing was developed in a lab. I'm sure we've all heard the Dulce, New Mexico stories and all the great things that come out of those camps. But Bob Gimlin would tell you that this creature that he saw was flesh and blood. So it was absolutely a physical being while it was here. There was nothing that he saw walking across the thing that made it any paranormal type species, but Bob still stands by that, and he saw it with his own eyes. So these are three doctors that really started this Gigantopithecus theory. Dr. Grover Krantz, who's now deceased, Dr. John Green, who's deceased, and Dr. John Bindernagel. If you've seen Dr. John Bindernagel on Destination America or Sci-Fi, he was out last weekend in British Columbia with audio equipment looking for Sasquatch. So many of these people have been doing this for over 50 years, trying to prove this theory that Sasquatch is an ape. And so a lot going on there. Of course, in today's world, and in my kind of genre, we have Cliff Barrickman from Finding Bigfoot. Everybody's seen Finding Bigfoot, I guess? You people? I'm not Bobo, sorry. I did cosplay Bobo at Rose City Comic Con, by the way. And that was a lot of fun. He got a good laugh out of that. But I even signed autographs at my booth. People thought I was Bobo. I had a black wig. I had the glum squatch and hat. It was a lot of fun. So, but it was a good time. Dr. Meldrum, of course, and then Lauren Coleman, who runs the Bigfoot Museum, is also a really good author and friend and great guy. But as we kind of dilute the camps, my role, I guess, as a promoter of research and discovery is to bring the camps together. And that's a difficult thing to do because everybody has their own opinion on what this is, and they put a lot of their credibility and time on the line about that. So I feel like I have one of the more difficult jobs, being kind of the moderator of all the camps and bringing them all together. I don't want to go on Chuck's show because, well, I believe it's this or that, or he had this guy on, but they're all starting to come together, so it's really a great thing. So then we have the spiritual and we have the woo camp. Native Americans and the First Nation tribes will tell you that Sasquatch is a forest spirit. It is absolutely a guardian of the natural world, and it protects the forest. It has no known predators, and it's at the top of the food chain. They will also tell you that Sasquatch can do some supernatural abilities, like interdimensional travel, or move from one place to another very, very quickly. There are reports of Sasquatch moving at 30 to 80 miles per hour. The average human runs about 17, unless you're really great. I run about 3. I'd have no chance against a Sasquatch. Right, so pretty interesting. The other thing with the Native Americans, and a lot of the camps are talking about, is the ancestral memory theory. And this is really about your DNA. So if you think about a cat, you buy a kitten, you bring it home, and somehow it knows to use the litter box. Same way with other animals. And so there's a theory, and I think that there's a couple other panels this weekend about DNA data storage. As you have offspring, that certain memories and certain intelligence gets transferred down throughout your DNA strand, and that you can actually store information in DNA. You're going to see a couple new series in Search of Aliens and Ancient Aliens that are going to talk further about this topic in upcoming episodes, so check out DNA data storage. But the theory for Sasquatch is that prehistorically it was always a big scary creature, and so as generation to generation, that somehow in that ancestral memory was passed down that be scared of the boogeyman. Don't leave the edge of the fire. You'll be taken away. I'm sure as kids, and I used to, if my closet was open, I saw clothes hanging in the closet, and a shadow, I'd think that the boogeyman was in there. He's going to get me, right? Go to run to mom's room. But anyway, so that's what the woo camp's all about. Out on our website, we do have a paranormal theory camp. I do kind of a matrix thing where swallow the red pill or swallow the blue pill. The blue pill takes you back to the flesh and blood camp, right? Bigfoot is just, I want my Bigfoot back. I want it to be flesh and blood with a baby, right? And everything's good. But if you go down the red pill, it'll take you down through the paranormal theory and all the different things. Quantum physics, quantum Bigfoot, collective consciousness, vortexes, portals. We've been to the UK, we've been all over the world looking at different theories on these topics. So you can definitely check that out. My mentor, and everybody has a mentor, right? Giorgio has, of course, his own mentors. I have my own mentors, right? Stan Gordon really got me on this topic. I met Stan at a couple conventions, but Stan's been doing research since 1959 in Pennsylvania. Stan actually was 10 years old when he was taking sightings of UFOs and Bigfoots. Can you imagine a kid coming in at 10 years old to interview you about your UFO encounter? Well, Stan's been doing it for a long time. John was teasing me earlier. I should have put a picture of Stan's filing system that he had, but it was literally a filing cabinet, which was kind of funny. Nobody uses that anymore. But so Stan started researching UFOs, the Kecksburg UFO. He's very famous for that. He was about 14 years old when he started investigating it and writing books. He was actually one of the first researchers that I came across. His mentor, by the way, is Stanton Friedman. Believe that or not. So that's pretty interesting. But Stan wrote a book called Silent Invasion, and it was about the 1972 and 73 UFO and Bigfoot casebook. So Stan has been really instrumental in kind of talking about, moving the flesh and blood camp off their rocker and really kind of removing blind spots. A lot of people have blind spots. It's really interesting, and that's kind of something I run into everywhere I go, that people have a blind spot that they can't imagine anything beyond their own reality. And so it's always about removing blind spots. That's what we're hoping to do tonight, about what Sasquatch or what Bigfoot could be. But Stan's really great about removing blind spots and really opening your mind and expanding your horizons about keeping an open mind about a subject until you come to the conclusion about what it is. So I really appreciate Stan. So it's been 50 years, and kind of reluctant to say it, but where's the body? Right? We have all this anecdotal evidence about Bigfoot and Sasquatch, and of course, a lot of it is footprint evidence, and there's been some DNA studies and some things, but after 50 years of research since 1967 in the Patterson-Gimlin film, where's the body? Right, so it's difficult for a lot of researchers to get their head around. There's a lot of people that have died researching these ape and flesh and blood camps. John Green, Grover Krantz, those folks. So tonight we're going to talk about Sasquatch as an alien. So is Sasquatch an alien species, and what really lends kind of some credence to the possibility that Sasquatch could be from another planet? And it could be visiting Earth. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the theories that come out. Has anybody seen the Ancient Alien episode, Sasquatch and Alien Bigfoot? All right, perfect. So we did one episode. We should be doing a lot more, right? Everybody agree? We didn't get enough information out during that episode. It was a great episode, and I was happy that they did it, but we could have done a lot more about it. So the internet has really helped us as researchers put more data together. There's an organization called the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, co-founded by Matt Moneymaker from Finding Bigfoot. I think everybody knows Matt or seen him on TV. So they've, since 1960, collected a map of sightings. I'm depicting it here on the screen. So now we have a visual database of Bigfoot sightings across North America. I do have a global map as well, and you can stop by the booth if you want to check it out or talk about it later. But there's a lot of sightings here. Does anybody here see sightings in their state? Can you guys raise your hands? All right. So if you think about, the ape camp and coming across British Columbia and hiding in the wilderness in Washington and Oregon and Northern California, for a lot of time, Bigfoot was just considered to stay here in the Northwest. And that's the only place it lived. But as the internet broke and as the Associated Press became more mainstream and information started streaming across the world, we've been able to archive the database. It's no longer telephone calls. We get emails at all times of the night. Social media posts, crazy social media posts. I've got 3 people dedicated to just looking at social media posts. That's how many different sightings we get on all kinds of different things. So it's pretty interesting. So what was really interesting is we've now been able to take the BFRO sightings website, and we've also been able to look at MUFONs. Okay, so the Mutual UFO Network, and they have a booth here this week, you can stop by and talk to them as well. So they've been taking UFO encounters and, of course, any kind of sightings through the MUFON database for a long time, and are finally able to visually depict via database and bring that up on the screen. So again, we don't have a body. It's been very, very challenging. Without a body, it's all anecdotal. So one of the things we decided to do last year, Sasquatch Syndicate, was to actually overlay the UFO and the Sasquatch sightings. Very, very interesting. Does anybody see their states up here on the map? Does anybody see any states besides Washington, Oregon, Alaska, and California? Quite a few, right? So it really lends credence to the fact that this creature, for whatever it is able to travel outside the Northwest on its leisure, And it's also, of course, if you start overlaying the sightings maps and the sightings of UFO and Sasquatch in the same areas, you start seeing a pretty good correlation of the two. This has helped us tremendously, bringing the syndicate together, what we call the Sasquatch Syndicate, and these different camps to start talking about the possibilities that Sasquatch is an alien, and it is coming to visit. It is a species. So if that's the case, really, what are they doing here? A couple different theories have been submitted. Of course, I'm sure many of you guys know Linda Moulton Howe and some other of the folks. I think she's going to be here this weekend. I think I saw her on the website. A couple different theories. One that it's here to conduct a harvest, or it could have been dropped off as an outcast of its civilization. But the fact is if that's true, again, what's it doing here? What is it here? Why don't we see it? Why don't we find its bones? The camp will tell you, by the way, that Sasquatch buries its dead. I'm not saying that that's true. I'm not saying it's an alien. I'm not saying it's what it is, again, until someone has one in a garage. And I can go poke my finger at it, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. But my mind's very open now that we've been able to bring this data together around sightings of both UFO and Sasquatch together. So the alien harvest is one of the biggest theories. The alien harvest is that it's coming here to, of course, harvest natural resources. And that's the best way to put it. There's a lot of theories around this. If you guys don't like to see cattle mutilations, then it's probably a good time to step out for 5 minutes. But the alien harvest, there's nobody really as a foremost expert more than Linda Moulton Howe. She dedicated many, many years to cattle mutilations and a lot of absolutely fantastic sightings. So one of the things that happened is Linda Moulton Howe met Stan Gordon at a conference. And this is before the internet. Everybody knows Linda's not 29 anymore, right? But her and Stan, of course, started exchanging topics. And the cool thing about Linda Moulton Howe and Stan Gordon is they didn't have any blind spots. So two researchers that typically were in opposed camps were able to talk about their sightings. Well, one thing Linda had was that she had a report from a gentleman in Snohomish, Washington, to come up to his farm. This gentleman had a UFO encounter where he saw a Sasquatch land on his property. And the next day, they found this. Cattle mutilations, for those that haven't seen them, they're not bloody. These are very precise instruments that cut these animals. But there's been many, many pictures that Linda's archived over the years of purported sightings of UFOs, Sasquatch, and mutilations. Another picture. The eyes and the mouth were removed. No blood. Very, very precise. Not something that a predator would do. Pretty interesting.